2 weeks ago, we brought up Black Lives Matter. And it's very true that in the heat of the moment, we aired that podcast within a day of 2 shootings, in Baton Rouge and in Minnesota. The data was fresh, and we were emotionally impacted by it. We were emotionally impacted by earlier incidences of violence against Black people by police. This has been in the media for a very long time. It's been being talked about for a few years now, and a picture has been painted that is a very inaccurate. Well, it has inaccuracies in it. And I'm gonna elucidate some of those. But I rushed to judgment in talking about the actions of the police involved in the shootings of Anton Sterling and Philando Castillo. Now, it was, as I've said, it was impossible to know all the facts. And Ruth and I took up a position that, based on the evidence that we did have, which were mainly the videos and the scant police reports in the media, that the police acted incorrectly. Now, as of right this second, I still believe that's true in those 2 cases. But I'll keep my opinions about that to myself at this point until all the facts are in. So, in backing away from this stuff, I want to say that some things about the facts and about what's right and what's wrong, right? Mainly, I want to sort of set the record straight on a few things that I've been accused of over the past couple months, through the comment sections or through emails that I have received, which you guys haven't all seen or won't see. But I've been accused of some things, and I thought, my thing as a public speaker and as a creator is I don't mind criticism, actually. I don't mind negative feedback. I think where I take an exception to criticism or negative feedback is when it's based on something that is inaccurate. It's something I didn't actually say or didn't actually do. And if you follow my channel and if you're part of the community on my channel, then you'll see me jump in on those comments from time to time to try to clarify what is it that the person actually disagrees with that they think I said or think I did. And I want people to disagree with me. I don't have a problem with that. I just want them to do it for the right reasons. And I don't mean to come off sounding like L. Ron Hubbard here, right? Because one of the things in Scientology is if you disagree with L. Ron Hubbard, then it must be that you just don't understand what he said, and that's not what I'm actually saying. You can disagree with me. If we both think that, if you think Hillary Clinton is a wonderful person who's full of integrity and honor, well, I don't agree with that. Right, and so we're going to disagree. And if you clearly state, your position about Hillary and why you think that, I'm going to look at that and go, well, I don't agree because of X and Y and Z, and so I don't look at her as a truthful person. And pretty much like I look at all politicians, unfortunately. And so we're going to disagree, and that's fine. We'll agree to disagree, no problem. Right now. A commenter a couple weeks ago called Babalafish or Bablofish, I'm really not sure how to pronounce that, sorry. He wrote a lengthy dissertation in the comment section about why the progressive left is just flat out wrong in everything they do, and he made some good points and he made some bad points. And because I engaged with him and I value the feedback I get from all of you guys, I'm going to address some of what he brought up and talk about that, okay? He was highly critical of my perceived left-wing bias and my left-wing ideas and attitudes, and he is a Trump supporter. So, without question, he and I do not agree on politics. We just don't. And I doubt that anything I'm going to say here today is going to change his mind about that, and I'm not going to sit here and talk about Trump. Okay, so just in case any of you guys are thinking that's what I'm going to get into, I'm not. Okay, and at least not too much. Okay, so Well, here's the thing, though. In these comments that he wrote, there were some good things and there were some bad things. Now, I am not above being wrong. And in fact, I don't even consider it a sign of weakness to admit that I'm wrong. And I don't, there's a lot of people out there who really seem to have a problem with saying they got something wrong. Really don't know what that's about. I do it all the time. It doesn't hurt my feelings, doesn't hurt my ego to go, oh yeah, okay. Because I get to learn new stuff, and I'm not all about asserting how right I am and how wrong you are. That's really not what I'm about. Okay, so first, let's talk about Black Lives Matter and discrimination in this country, in the USA. Now, as far as Black Lives Matter goes, it's a specific movement. It was started by 3 women. And 3 black women, and it's got a website, it's got an agenda, it's got specific ideas and things like that, and things it's trying to accomplish. Some things they get right, and some things they get wrong. But because in this country we crave narratives, we want a story, man, and we're trained from birth, because of the nature of our society and the way our civilization is set up. We really are raised from birth with the idea that there are only people who are heroes and there are people who are villains. And we think we have to choose sides. And we have to be all in or all out. It's either Black Lives Matter is great and it's the best thing since sliced bread and it's fighting for everybody's rights and how dare you question it. And then, or on the other end, it's Black Lives Matter supports violence and wants to kill cops, and it's all about racial disparity, and it's all about causing divisiveness, and how dare you support those people? They might as well have been founded by the Antichrist. And you get these disparate views. And it's that way not just with Black Lives Matter. It's that way with so many things. It's ingrained in our thinking in Western culture. I don't know, maybe all over the world, but it's a point of critical thinking to realize that that's a bias we all have. I don't know what to call it, the good guy, bad guy bias. I don't know, but we do it. We naturally, and well, maybe not naturally, but it might as well be natural because we're raised with it, and this is how we look at things. So, Black Lives Matter was founded after the killing of Trayvon Martin in Florida, right? You all might remember a few years ago, that he was killed by George Zimmerman. And, I spent quite a bit of time looking over all the facts of that. It's been a couple of years. That case was investigated at a local, state, and federal level. There were lots of eyes on that case and what happened with it, okay? And when you look at that case, there were lots of inaccuracies and outright lies told during the time of its reporting. And you can't go back and change that. There is no reset button on history. And that's a shame because the entire incident was misrepresented in a number of ways. Specifically, what I'm talking about are the fact that the police investigated it and decided not to prosecute. Trayvon Martin's family decided that they wanted a lot of media about this because they were outraged and felt that George Zimmerman had acted incorrectly and had murdered their kid. Well, they hired a publicist. And, within a day or two, this story became national headline media. Great. All the facts aren't in. It's not clear exactly precisely what happened. The police were still investigating it. Yet, in the court of public opinion, this case was tried and George Zimmerman was found guilty of murder in the court of public opinion almost immediately. And MSNBC and NBC and ABC decided that that was the narrative that they were going to run with. And George Zimmerman was made out to be an evil, horrible person. He was first portrayed as a white man when in fact he's Latino. Trayvon Martin was shown years old pictures of him were shown when he was younger. His skin was lightened to make him more sympathetic, whereas with George Zimmerman, the only thing they showed of him was his mugshot. And he looked overweight, and he looked like you look in a mugshot. You don't smile when you're in a mugshot. So I'm not saying right now anything about whether George Zimmerman did or didn't murder Trayvon Martin, because here's the thing. There was a very short period of time between his 911 call and the police showing up where the only people in the world who know what happened are Trayvon Martin and George Zimmerman. None of the rest of us actually know what happened, and we're never going to. So I'm not going to sit here and pontificate about whether George Zimmerman did or didn't murder Trayvon Martin. However, what I am going to pontificate about is how the case was reported on, because the bias against George Zimmerman was immediate and very, very direct, to the point where when the 911 calls, and there were two of them, when those calls were released to the media, NBC specifically, spliced those two calls into one and presented them in an edited version, making it look like, or sound like rather, that George Zimmerman was a racist. Well, the evidence shows that George Zimmerman is not a racist. You can say a lot of things about this guy, but a history of racism is not one of the things that you can claim, because it doesn't exist. And in fact, just the opposite exists. George Zimmerman's history, and everybody who was talked to about him from his past, indicated that he has, as a Latino member of his community, always been in support of the black community and with specific black people in that community. He stood up for, in one case, when nobody else did. So there is not a racial motive evident in the facts surrounding this case. However, immediately this case was made about race. And that is media bias. And that's his family, and that's the media creating a narrative, which we all crave. We want that narrative. So everybody fell into believing that narrative. Okay. Then the case was not going to be tried, but because of all the public pressure on the case, George Zimmerman went to trial, and he was found innocent, or at least not guilty of murder, based on all the evidence. Now, the jury was sequestered, and they did not know everything that was going on in the world, in the big wide world, and all the race statements and various things that were being claimed. They were sequestered from all that, and they listened to all the facts that were presented, and they went in and they came back with a verdict of not guilty. One of those jurors, in fact, the only black woman on that jury, was interviewed on the news. Her interview, the raw interview, was edited down, of course, but it was edited in such a way as to make her seem to say that that she felt as a juror that George Zimmerman got away with murder. And she never actually said any such thing. She never felt that way. That wasn't what was going on with that jury. And yet the media had that narrative, and they continued feeding that narrative even after the case was over. To ruin George Zimmerman's life, well, you can have an opinion about whether his life should or shouldn't be ruined based on all the facts, or you can have an opinion about George Zimmerman's life being ruined based on media hype and misrepresentation of what actually happened. The choice is up to you as to how you want to form your opinions. I think facts matter. And so after looking at all the facts that are available on the case that I could look at, seemed pretty clear to me that 1, it was not racially motivated. 2, it was made very purposefully to look like it was racially motivated. And so as a result of that, these 3 women who started Black Lives Matter hashtagged on Facebook Black Lives Matter, hey, this is just another case of the white guys or black oppression and this sort of thing, because that has certainly existed in history. And so this was just added up on the mark of another case. Trayvon Martin was another victim of black disparity here in the United States. Well, that's just not true. That's not actually what happened in that specific case. Okay,